But this is courtesy of Blogging the Boys. Excellent article. 9 free agency mistakes the Cowboys should not repeat. Number 1, you're going to love it. The veteran running back. Don't do it. Don't go after the veteran running back. And my goodness gracious, you look at the last 2 years, the teams that have done this outside of one, and that would be David Montgomery, who went from Chicago to Detroit, signed a 3-year, $18 million deal. He's the only one that saw his yardage increase from the previous season the year after when he signed with his new team. Otherwise, everything is just drastic drop-offs. Miles Sanders, Jamal Williams, Dalvin Cook. The year before, Leonard Fournette, Rashad Penny, Brandon Bolden. I mean, it is just a who's who of don't do this. It's not going to go well for you. And the big name this year is Derrick Henry. And I saw videos today. Derrick Henry's working out. It's probably not going to work out for you if you go ahead and pay Derrick Henry, the veteran free agent running back, big money, because it doesn't seem to be working out for any of these guys.
You know, I think teams ultimately have to take an even stronger approach to this free agency, and there's still a couple of teams keeping this alive that, you know, is providing the idea that maybe one of these guys will get $8 or $9 million, but it's got to reset down to like $4 or $5 million. Then the 26, 27, 28-year-old back coming off of a good year will have a great, comfortable spot in the free agent marketplace. You know, at that point, getting an assurance that I have a guy that's going to know, his pass protection assignments, who has a track record of avoiding tacklers or breaking tackles. You know, I can get all that stuff on the free agent market without killing my cap. But once you're over $5 million, every smart team left in this league is going to say, absolutely not, you know. And I think the Cowboys cross that, you know. That's what I would like to say. I don't believe the Cowboys are still naive to this fact, Giafalo.
Yeah, I don't think they are either. We've already got the Gilkin report this offseason that they're like, okay, we're done with this. And they're certainly late to the party, but welcome to it. Glad you're here. And they're not going to put a tag on Pollard. They're not going to throw a big contract at any free agent running back. I do think like having a veteran guy on the super cheap is fine. Like, how cheap is he? Because if he is like $1 million back, it's not that big of a deal. So I think getting one of those guys in free agency would be smart, and then obviously get somebody in the draft that you think can be sort of your future at the position.
Yeah, all these guys they specified was like $6 million or more. So if you're paying
can't
something
do
like
that.
$3 million, I'm okay. And we talked about like Zach Moss is a guy that you could look at, and he's probably going to stay in Indianapolis because he had a great year there. But that's a name that you could kind of monitor and say, okay, maybe that's a dude for you. Now, the veteran defender from a top defense is another thing that you should try and avoid.
Really?
The issue with a veteran defender from a top defense is that you're not sure whether the player you're acquiring is good because of his talent or because of the scheme his team employed, or his teammates playing alongside him. Now, this relates to kind of what we've talked about with Patrick Queen, like one of the best linebackers on the market. We saw, and Brian Baldinger talked to us about this, he changed as a player the second Roquan Smith got there. He took away the call on the defense, right? That was something where Patrick Queen was playing slow. He was overthinking things. And as soon as he has that taken off of his plate, he ends up being the player that they thought they were getting when they drafted him in the first round. So I think this is circumstantial. I don't think you should say like, oh, I'm never going to sign a top defensive player from another team. But you do need to kind of look into this and be like, all right, how does this guy fit in with our new scheme, our talent? Is he going to be in a position to succeed much like where he was before? Because you got to kind of weigh all the nuances with that conversation.
Yeah, that was the case with Earl Thomas in Seattle. They were just so dang good at putting him in the best position to succeed that he was an all-pro. And then as soon as he left and, you know, the defense wasn't catered to his specific skill set, his career fell apart really quickly. So, you know, you look at the bullet the Cowboys dodged with Nnamdi Asomugha. I would just say you're looking for diamonds in the rough, you know, more than you're looking for now, especially in the middle of the field. But I know an edge can win. I know a corner can win, regardless of circumstances. You know, I think it's the middle of the field players that are going to be dependent on how much pressure and how good of a job your defensive line's doing containing things.
Yeah, and it should be relatively easy to know, like, okay, I am a man-to-man. I need a legit corner. I'm not going to get, just because you were an awesome cover two corner for a team like Mike Zimmer says he can find at Walmart, but you're not running that, then that's not going to be the guy for you. But L'Jarius Sneed, hey, just line up and let me press man on a guy and run with him. Like, okay, you can do that for me, no problem. Chris Jones, you're going to be fine somewhere else, even though they both probably remain Chiefs.
We're tied at 3 with 1:45 to go.
Son of a gun,
I mean,
dude.
they're banged up.
So we were trying to milk a lead for what? We needed 5 minutes. We needed 5 minutes of a milk lead there.
Hawk and Paw's out. Now you've got two guys that were playing with the Texas Stars that are both getting big-time playing time for you. I mean, it's an issue. I mean, the defense is being leaky. They're probably going to go to an overtime again. All right, the second and third wide receiver in an effective passing offense is something you should also potentially avoid. Bill Barnwell referred to this as the Alvin Harper rule. Cowboys found themselves in this when they traded for Roy Williams in 2007. And then, of course, you saw this when the Jags paid Laurent Robinson from the Cowboys. It's like, oh, this dude just put up monster numbers. Then he gets to Jacksonville, and unfortunately his career was cut short because of the concussions, but he just wasn't quite the same. So just because these guys, and Jawan Jennings, I think, might be the player that we look at this year. He's the third option there in San Francisco, certainly had a monster Super Bowl. Does somebody end up overpaying for that type of player in free agency? You probably don't want to be the team that does that.
Cedric Wilson going to Miami fell off, after looking so good for the Cowboys. Yeah, a lot of those guys have a lot of success because of a specific role that team has carved out for them. And it was a real shame the Cowboys lost Wilson because I was excited about, what they were able to do with him.
The pass rusher coming off a monster contract year. You got guys like Leonard Williams, Carl Lawson, Marcus Davenport in recent years that went ahead and crushed it, then got paid, weren't quite the same players after that. Also, if you're going to go ahead and bring in a player and you're asking him to do something different, this goes with like some of those defensive players we were talking about earlier. You're like, oh, we really like the guy. We think he's got a great skill set, but now he's asked to do something on our team, whether this dude was a guard, we're going to kick him out to tackle or center or defensive tackle. He was playing 3 tech. Now we're going to move him over to 1 tech. You got to be careful with that. And then number 6, something this team might have an issue with, the dumb player. Now, you're probably not going to know this unless you ask around the league. You call that other team, coaches, scouts, you get the player in here, but Bill Parcells had the quote, dumb players do dumb things. Smart players seldom do dumb things. And Mike Zimmer in his introductory pressers seemed like that was something that was going to drive him crazy. When he teaches something and you don't do what I've taught you to do, I'm going to lose my mind. I think we've already seen maybe this team has some guys that aren't the most when it comes to instinctive. The football IQ could be in question. You don't want to add more of those to the locker room.
Yeah, discipline's what I need. I think you can have a low IQ, but be so on the ball that you're like, man, I'm just not going to be the guy making mistakes because I'm focused. That's what I want. I want focused players who play with discipline.
The other ones are just ignoring why a team let an older player go. You got to do your homework on that. Not being active in free agency at all, which the Cowboys often fall into that category. You got to at least look and try and improve your roster in some areas. And then not using your late round picks as trade currency to circumvent free agency altogether. They did a great job of it last year. We applauded them for it. It was the first time we'd really seen them do this. You gave up late-round picks to go and get Brandon Cooks and get Stephon Gilmore, and they were big for you this year. But ultimately, they haven't done it enough, and if they go ahead and evaluate a player, maybe you don't get a free agent here, but there is a player that's going to be a cap casualty, I'll give you a 6 out for somebody else because most of the time you're getting players like a Danny Cole who doesn't end up working for you, or a Bradley Anai who I was hoping would work. He didn't. The list goes on and on. Now, they've hit on some of them. Deron Bland, for example, is a guy that they definitely hit on. But more often than not, you're taking massive flyers with those late-round picks. Go get yourself an established veteran if the opportunity presents itself.